Images emerged today of Daniel Dubois. Now, I would imagine these are images from probably a couple of weeks ago. Certainly, recent enough, but not obviously this week, because sparring, and they're sparring photos of Daniel Dubois in sparring with Tony Yoka. Now, I love reading about not just sparring rumours and stuff like that. There's no real rumours about this one. But I love looking at who's in camp, who fighters, especially for big fights, are sparring ahead of their respective fights. Because it really does give you an indication as to what they're expecting, the variety kind of, and also as well as that, when you look at someone like an Alexander Usyk or a Tyson Fury, when Tyson Fury was sparring young Moses Atelma, you also look and you say, okay, well, these young heavyweights, the likes of Moses Atelma, they really are going to get a lot of experience in there, and we can kind of see how that benefit them in future fights. And same with some of the guys Alexander Usyk had in camp. Now, I say this is obviously a recent photo, but not that recent, because you would never be sparring. You would normally routinely stop probably the week before fight week is normally when they bring an end to the sparring. You're never going to be sparring on fight week. I'd be very surprised if you did. Very surprised, because you run the risk of getting injured, you run the risk of cuts, stuff like that. So I'd be very surprised. Maybe fighters who are, in a 4 rounder on a small hall show, they might. Even then, they probably wouldn't, because I've been around, gyms where they have had fighters on small hall shows, and they are stopping the sparring in terms of in camp well over a week before fight week. Maybe 7 to 10 days before it. So I'd imagine it's not that recent, but Daniel Dubois sparring Tony Yoka, that's a very good sparring partner. It's a very good choice of sparring partners as well in preparation for Anthony Joshua. Now, for those who don't know, Tony Yoka was trained by Virgil Hunter. He was trained by him for pretty much the majority of his pro career. I know there was a couple of fights in France during the situation that happened a couple of years ago where Tony Yoka was still with Virgil Hunter, but he wasn't traveling to France to train him. So he had, I don't actually know who was in the corner for some of those fights, but primarily that's who he's been based with. He's since left Virgil Hunter, and he's now, believe it or not, being trained by Don Charles, the man people come to when their career is pretty much at a crossroads or, in a real bad way, in the hope of maybe turning that around. So you would imagine he's in the same gym as Daniel Dubois. It's inevitable they're going to be sparring at some point. In terms of Yoka as a sparring partner, as I said, I think that's a very, very good sparring partner for Daniel Dubois. Because I think Tony Yoka, correct me if I'm wrong, is about, well, he is a very tall man. He's about 6'6", 6'7". He might actually be a little bit taller than Joshua. He might be a little bit taller. I'm not 100% sure, just off the top of my head, his height. But I'm pretty sure he would be taller than Daniel Dubois, I know that. In terms of weight, I think he's in around the 240s as well. He is not the puncher that Anthony Joshua is. He certainly isn't that. Well, he hasn't been that for, well, you could argue he was never that, but he certainly doesn't pack the same punch that Anthony Joshua has. I'm sure his shots don't tickle, but he doesn't have that brute force that Joshua has. He doesn't seem to have that strength either that Anthony Joshua has. So if you're looking for someone to mimic Anthony Joshua in terms of if you're up close, if you're looking to, match fire with fire, if you're looking to, push someone back, you're probably going to have you're going to definitely have an easier time pushing someone like Tony Yoka back than you would in Anthony Joshua. And of course, he's not going to hit anywhere near as hard as Anthony Joshua, but he is, I don't think he's the most upright heavyweight in the world, no, but he is someone who will fight, I would imagine, in a similar kind of motion to Anthony Joshua. He can be a little bit more fluid, Tony Yoka. You'll see that with him. There were times when he was with Virgil Hunter where some of the move sets he was doing and the way he was moving around the ring was reminiscent to a heavyweight Andre Ward. Understand what I say when I say reminiscent. Doesn't mean that he is on the level of an Andre Ward or anything like that. He just seemed to be mimicking some of his movements. Nowhere near as good as Andre Ward, never will be. But he seemed to have little bits of that in his arsenal, certainly a couple of years ago. Now, him as a sparring partner, as I said, for Daniel Dubois, I actually think that would work out pretty damn well. Because you want someone who, and obviously it's not just going to be Tony Yoka who's the sparring partner. They're obviously going to have more guys in who are going to replicate what Anthony Joshua would do. I'd like to know actually who else he has. I should have really, because a lot of others, not just myself, a lot of people really like knowing who such and such is sparring ahead of a certain fight. That I'd love to know who Joshua is sparring as well as Daniel Dubois. Tony Yoka will bring certain things to the table that will benefit Daniel Dubois in a sense of being able to spar Tony Yoka because, again, he's nowhere near as good as Anthony Joshua in spite of the fact they're both Olympic gold medalists. Yoka is more amateurish in his approach than Anthony Joshua ever was. But there is similarities there. Dimensions wise, similarities certainly at long range. Daniel Dubois will. I'd love to know how he's going to cope with Tony Yoka's jab. It's not an amazing jab, but he is a jabber. He does jab a good bit. Tony Yoka, have you ever seen him? He actually looks to set up a right hand off that jab, which is something that Anthony Joshua may very well be doing. So it's going to be interesting to see how Daniel Dubois, how much of a help that's going to be to Dubois being in camp, sparring someone like a Tony Yoka. That's a very good sparring partner to have, in my opinion, for Anthony Joshua. And now, listen, that's not to turn around and say, that's going to make a massive amount of difference in the fight. It may or it may not. I remember when Tyson Fury was getting ready for the first Deontay Wilder fight, one of the guys he had in sparring at the time was Lawrence Okolie. There's pictures of the two there. Not on screen, obviously, but there's pictures of the two if you Google it. That Lawrence Okolie was in sparring Tyson Fury. And at that time in Okolie's career, he wouldn't have been able to do it against Tyson Fury anyway, because he would have been outmanned, to say the least. But he would stand his ground a little bit more at that point in his respective career, and he would fight a little bit more at range. I think that was when he was just starting with Shane McGuigan after he stunk the joint out against Manny Askin. And I thought that was a great choice of sparring partner. And obviously it turned out, well, he didn't officially beat Deontay Wilder the first time. He should have got the nod, but he didn't. But having a sparring partner like that really helps. And I think with some people, they underestimate how good having a sparring partner as closest to your opponent is, because you hear some people say like, oh well, if you get a really really good quality sparring partner, like you hear people and they'll be like, oh, if you could get someone like Alexander Usyk into camp and spar him, that's better than anything. Well, Usyk is 6'3". I'm just using an analogy. I've seen people say this, like say like you're talking Joseph Parker. Oh, you're getting ready to fight Joseph Parker. Yeah, if you sparred Alexander Usyk, you're like, you do realize Usyk is a southpaw and he's 6'3". Yeah, but he's so good. Like, think how, yeah, but you want to mimic the guy. You want the fighter to be as close as you can to the opponent. So good lord. I remember when Andy Ruiz was to step in for Anthony Joshua, he had spent an entire camp training for Alexander Dmytrenko, and he fought him at the end of April 2019. Dmytrenko, again, nowhere near as good as Anthony Joshua, but similar dimensions. So he was able to beat Dmytrenko. I think he stopped him in 4 or 5 rounds, have a little break, and then go straight into another camp, essentially doing the same thing. You're training for someone who is 6'7", quite stiff and upright, and, well, a lot better but than the guy you just fought, but a similar dimension. So that's what you need. That's 100% what you need. So I like this choice of sparring partner. It makes sense. Obviously, they're both trained by Don Charles, so it will be inevitable that they would spar irrespective of who they're both fighting. It's inevitable that's going to happen. But I do like it as a choice of sparring partner for Dubois. And I may do a separate video on who Anthony Joshua is sparring as well, and just to kind of gauge who's there, because sparring is, it as close as you're going to get to a fight. And a lot of times they don't really hold back sometimes, and you hear these sparring rumors, sparring stories. We all love a sparring story, a sparring rumor. We all love it, but we also love to see who they're sparring in preparation for their respective fights. So I like this choice, and yeah, might pay dividends on fight night. Who knows? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, as always, if you haven't already. We want to get to 30k as quick as we can. So help your boy out. Hit the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. Peace.